When you hear the words seaport, what comes to mind? Giant cranes stretching into the sky, the smell of salt and diesel, the deep blast of ship horns echoing from far away, hundreds of containers stacked up like movable buildings, and of course water. There has to be water. If there's no ocean, no river, not even some miserable little stream, then why would anyone build a port there? And yet, that is exactly what people are doing. Right in the middle of Nevada, one of the driest and most landlocked states in America. No ocean, no seagulls. Nothing but burning sand, tumbleweeds rolling in the wind, and sunlight so harsh it could fry an egg on asphalt. And still, right here, people are pouring billions of dollars into building a massive maritime logistics hub. It sounds like the crazy idea of a billionaire who lost his mind, or some ridiculous mistake in an engineering blueprint. But no, this is actually one of the smartest logistics solutions the United States has ever come up with. And to understand why, we have to start with one simple number: tens of millions of steel containers every year. The giant conveyor belt across the Pacific. If you look at a world map, the Pacific Ocean seems like a huge empty space between Asia and America. Just water, nothing special. But in reality, that ocean has never been Kwahanyao. Right now, thousands of container ships are cutting through its waves in a flow that almost never stops from China, Vietnam, South Korea, straight toward the west coast of the United States. If you looked at that route from a satellite, it would look less like the ocean and more like a giant industrial conveyor belt. Every year, tens of millions of standard 20-foot containers arrive in the United States. Inside those steel boxes is almost everything Americans use in daily life. Brand new iPhones, sneakers, car parts, electronic components, even toilet paper. The entire modern American economy depends heavily on this ocean conveyor belt. If it gets jammed for just 2 weeks, supermarket shelves go empty, factories shut down, and online orders disappear as if they evaporated. And the destination for nearly 30% of all those containers? 2 ports sitting side by side on the coast of California, Los Angeles, and Long Beach. A perfect machine until the cargo touches land. From the sea, Los Angeles and Long Beach look like a machine that never stops. Deep water channels where ships do not have to worry about running aground. Robotic cranes standing along the docks, grabbing container after container and placing them on land at incredible speed. On paper, this is one of the most sophisticated port systems in the world. But the moment that steel container touches American soil, everything starts falling apart. The problem is very simple. There is no space. Around those 2 ports is Los Angeles, the most populated city in California, packed with residential neighborhoods, office buildings, narrow streets, and endless traffic. There are no vast empty yards where millions of containers can sit and wait. There are not enough warehouses. Trucks spend hours crawling through traffic just to reach the port, then spend more hours crawling back out. Freight trains are not doing much better either. The result? Cargo gets unloaded quickly, but then it has nowhere to go, so it piles up. Then the next container arrives, and there is no room. The port begins choking on its own cargo. So the question is, could this situation turn into a disaster? The answer is, it already did. And the entire United States felt it. The year 2021, when the Pacific turned into a parking lot, it was 2021. The COVID-19 pandemic was at its peak. Millions of Americans were stuck at home. They could not go to restaurants, they could not go to movie theaters, but their bank cards still had money, and the internet never went offline. So they bought things. A lot of things. New bicycles, sofas, televisions, countless random products from Asia all at the same time, all flowing in the same direction. The already strained system in Los Angeles collapsed almost instantly. Container yards filled up to 100%. Steel boxes were stacked on top of one another, almost up to the reach of the cranes. Warehouses deeper inland were jammed too. Trucks and trains carried containers there, but there was nowhere to unload them. Robotic cranes were ready on the docks. Ships had arrived. But containers could not be taken off because there was not a single free patch of ground left to place them. And that is when history recorded a scene nobody had ever seen before. More than 100 giant container ships had to drop anchor off the coast of California, waiting there for weeks on end. Captains could look at the port through binoculars, but they could do nothing. Entire fleets worth billions of dollars just floated helplessly on the waves. The most powerful logistics machine in the world had frozen, not because there were no ships, not because there was no cargo, not because there were no workers, but simply because there was no empty land near the coast. When you have to pay beachfront rent for a steel box, cargo owners looked at that situation and almost wanted to cry, not out of fear, but because of the daily charges piling up in front of them. A seaport is not a free parking lot. Coastal land in California is among the most expensive real estate in the world. Every day your container sits and takes up space on the dock. The fee meter keeps running. Normally, you only get a few free days to send a truck in and pick up your cargo. If you cannot do it in time because of traffic, a shortage of drivers, or any other reason, you get fined. A few $100s a day per container. A large company with thousands of containers stuck in that congestion, it could lose millions of dollars every single day. Not because the cargo was damaged, not because the ship hit a storm, but simply because the goods were not moving. Then someone started asking a very obvious question. Why am I paying some of the highest coastal land rent in America for a metal box that is just sitting there waiting? Does a container need an ocean view? Does it need nice weather? No, it can sit anywhere. And from that question, an idea was born. A seaport where there is no sea. Put a container port in the middle of the Nevada desert. It still sounds insane, but keep listening. The project is officially called the Port of Nevada. Located on the outskirts of the small town of Fernley, Nevada, there are no ships, no water surface, no sailors. Instead, it is a massive freight transfer hub in the desert, a place where containers arrive by rail, get stored, sorted, and redistributed across the country. So why Fernley? Two very practical reasons. First, railroads. Fernley is a junction for two of the biggest railroad companies in the United States, Union Pacific and BNSF. The infrastructure already exists. They do not have to build everything from scratch. Second, land. Around Fernley, the desert stretches almost endlessly. Land is so cheap it is almost being given away. Instead of squeezing millions of containers into a tiny patch of coastal California, people can pour concrete over the sand across an area larger than 100 football fields, install modern cranes, build cold warehouses, temperature-controlled storage, and industrial facilities. The desert becomes the perfect warehouse, almost unlimited space, rent close to nothing, and no one building apartments or opening coffee shops next door. The system works with a beautifully simple logic. Trains run from the coast to the desert. Cranes unload containers, and the cargo can sit there peacefully while waiting for the next step. Cargo owners escape huge penalty fees. The seaport is freed from the container pileup that was suffocating it. Oakland has already proved that it works. This model is not just theory on a whiteboard. It has already been tested and is now operating in real life at the Port of Oakland, a major port in the San Francisco Bay Area. In the past, Oakland worked the old-fashioned way. Ships came in, containers were unloaded, and thousands of trucks slowly crawled along the packed Interstate 80 highway to carry cargo in different directions. That highway is famous for constant traffic jams. Diesel smoke filled the air, logistics teams tore their hair out over delays they could not predict. With the inland port in Nevada, the whole process changes. Containers from the Oakland docks are moved straight onto trains. No highway, no traffic jam, no hours wasted in congestion. The train runs directly east toward Nevada. Clean, simple, fast. And when Oakland gets some of that burden removed, the entire West Coast logistics system can breathe a little easier. California warehouses become less overloaded. Nearby ports also face less pressure. And that is only Oakland. The next target is direct connection from Los Angeles and Long Beach, the two giants still drowning in congestion, straight into Nevada. Once that route is running, trains will take containers directly from the pier and rush them into the desert nonstop. The Port of Los Angeles will become a pure transfer point, no longer a daily fee parking lot for steel boxes. The weight problem and the surprise savings. There is one benefit people talk about less, but it is actually very important. Weight. When containers are moved by truck on roads, the United States has very strict weight rules. Overloaded trucks damage pavement, especially bridges. There are hundreds of weigh stations along federal highways, and overweight fines are no joke. As a result, companies often have to load cargo safely, meaning a container's never filled all the way to its limit, or they have to hire extra trucks to split the load. Both options waste money. Rail is completely different. Steel rails can handle loads that asphalt roads simply cannot match. Containers sent by train to Nevada can be loaded right up to their maximum limit. No arguments, no penalties. Fewer train trips can carry more cargo. And when the containers reach Fernley, a little miracle called transloading begins. The principle is simple. Goods from standard ocean containers, 20-foot or 40-foot boxes, are moved into American domestic trailers, which are bigger, longer, and able to carry significantly more. 3 ocean containers can be combined neatly into 2 American trailers. Instead of sending 3 trucks deeper inland, you only need 2. That saves 1/3 of the trucking cost immediately. Multiply that across thousands of containers every day, and the savings are no longer small. Special neighbors, Tesla, Amazon, and the companies that need cargo right on time. Fernley was not chosen only because it has rail lines and cheap land. Its geography is the real strategic card. Right next to Fernley is the Tahoe-Reno Industrial Center, usually called TRIC, the largest industrial park in the United States by area. This is not a normal industrial zone sitting at the edge of a city. This is a massive stretch of desert where some of the biggest names in the world have placed factories and distribution centers. Tesla's Gigafactory is here. Amazon, Google, Walmart, Panasonic, Switch, they are all present in this industrial zone. Every day, these factories consume thousands of tons of components, electronic chips, and raw materials. Their supply chains have to run continuously. There is no such thing as the goods will arrive a week late. For Tesla, if the assembly line stops for one day, the damage is enormous. The Port of Nevada solves that problem in an almost perfect way. Instead of each factory having to fight through the logistics chain from California ports through traffic jams, overloaded warehouses, and countless delay points, the Fernley port handles the difficult part. Cargo comes off ships in California, goes straight onto trains, runs directly into Nevada, gets unloaded, redistributed, and delivered to the factory gate. It is almost like a direct supply pipeline from the ocean to the production line. A closed loop, when empty containers turn into money. Once the cargo is taken away, the steel container sits empty. And this is where a new problem begins, a problem almost no one outside the logistics industry thinks about. Containers coming from Asia to the United States are full of goods, but containers going back from the United States to Asia are often empty. Logistics companies spend billions of dollars every year shipping air across the Pacific. This is called repositioning, moving empty containers back to where they are needed. It sounds funny, but it is one of the biggest costs in ocean freight. The Port of Nevada has a solution. Do not let the containers go back empty. As soon as a container is unloaded in Fernley, instead of sending it back to the coast with nothing inside, the port sends it to farmers in Nevada and nearby states. American farmers always have goods to export. Soybeans, compressed hay, especially hay, a product China imports in huge quantities to feed livestock. The container is filled tightly with compressed hay, sealed, loaded onto a train, sent back to the port, placed on a ship, and carried to Asia. The result is a perfect circle. The container no longer returns empty, it carries export goods. Logistics companies no longer pay to ship air. American farmers get a cheaper and more convenient export channel without having to deal with complicated transport connections. Everybody wins. They are building more, because they know the disaster will come again. The Americans are not stopping at "it exists, it works, good enough." They're building this desert port with a safety margin for the future. The entire project covers about 91 hectares, the equivalent of more than 100 football fields. And it is still expanding. Around 20,000 feet of new rail track is being laid across the desert. The purpose? To allow freight trains several kilometers long to run directly into the facility without being split apart. The train arrives, automated cranes unload continuously, and the train turns back toward the coast to pick up more cargo. No waiting, no bottleneck. On top of that, an industrial warehouse of nearly 240,000 square feet is rising, basically a small city built just for cargo, with dozens of loading doors so trucks can receive containers almost immediately. The goal is clear. If the West Coast faces another crisis like 2021, and according to the logic of global markets, it will happen again. Nevada will be ready to absorb thousands of containers within hours, spread them across huge concrete yards, and keep American trade flowing as if nothing happened. But everything hangs on one rail line. For all its cleverness, this system has one deadly weakness, and nobody is hiding it. The entire logistics chain from the coast to the desert depends on rail. Without rail, there is nothing. Containers cannot arrive by truck in the millions. There are not enough trucks, not enough drivers, not enough road capacity. The railroad is the only bloodstream. And that bloodstream almost got cut once. In late 2022, American railroad workers nearly went on strike. This was not the kind of strike where people stop working for one day and then everything goes back to normal. They almost dragged the entire national economy into paralysis. Freight trains would have stopped. Rail lines would have gone silent. If that strike had lasted a few more weeks, the American supply chain could have collapsed on a scale never seen before. In that situation, what would the Port of Nevada become? A desert parking lot, containers sitting motionless, cargo not coming in, farmers unable to export, Tesla factories not receiving parts. Everything stops just because the only connection has been cut. That is the nature of a system that depends on a single point. When that point breaks, there is no plan B. Nevada may have the best port in the world, but it cannot operate by itself. It needs trains. It needs railroad workers. And it needs that system to never be interrupted. The lesson from the desert. But even with that weakness, the Port of Nevada still represents a way of thinking that is truly worth learning from. When faced with a space problem, no land near the coast, no way to expand the Port of Los Angeles because the city is already there, people did not sit around waiting for a miracle. They asked, why does a container have to stay near the ocean? And when the answer was, there is no real reason, they moved the port into the desert. That is not madness. That is thinking without being trapped by old habits. A seaport does not always need a sea. A warehouse does not always need to sit next to a port. A container does not need to enjoy an ocean view while it waits. And the desert, a place nobody wants to go, where land is dirt cheap, can become one of the most important links in the supply chain of the largest economy on Earth. Among the sand and dust of Nevada, people built something the California coast could never build: space. And sometimes, space is the most valuable thing in the world.